Hey y'all, I am Tamara Lee. If you don't know me, I am originally from Rochester, New York, and I have a story to tell that some of you may be interested in. Before making my big move across the country, actually, part of the reason I made my big move across the country is because I really needed a new beginning because of a really traumatic and painful situation that I experienced in Rochester over a course of several years, my last few years there. And before now, I haven't really talked about it. But this week happens to be the 4-year anniversary of the closing of the Out Alliance, which was the agency that I was number 2 in command of, that shuttered and has recently rebranded as the Rainbow Union. There we had a very small staff. It was 11 of us total, I think, like 7 full-time, 4 part-time, and some really horrible things happened to us in our time there. And because we ended up deciding to pursue a lawsuit when we were unlawfully terminated and we were let go with no cause and no severance and no notice and no good reason, we thought about suing. We went back and forth with it, eventually decided to move forward with the lawsuit after one of our coworkers went ahead and did hers and settled her claims with them. And so we had been advised to not take it to social media and let it play out in the courts. Right now, the Out Alliance, now Rainbow Union, is trying to reopen. They're trying to start over. And because they would like to start over and because this lawsuit is hanging over their head, they have refused to give us an apology, to acknowledge the things they did to us, to pay us any of the money that they owe us from unpaid mileage or any kind of severance, like I said, or commissions that are owed to us, or overtime that we had to work that we weren't compensated for, or any compensation for the traumatic things that happened to us during that time. And so none of us have really told our stories, but there's a story to tell. And I think that not only do we have the right to tell it, I think the community needs to hear it as they're deciding if they're going to support this new emergence of this agency that's coming forward. They are currently claiming that they have no money. There is no money to compensate us for any of the things that we lost, to make us whole again. And so there's a good possibility that since they also didn't carry the insurance that would have paid off such a lawsuit, that our lawsuit could die at this point. And so I guess I decided I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. So I'm gonna tell the story. It may end up having a million parts. It's a long story. I'm gonna be like Rochester's Risa Tisa right now, and tell this long story. And a lot of it is really difficult to tell because there's a lot of pain and trauma attached to it. But people want to know the real reason the Out Alliance closed, and I'm ready to talk about the real reason the Out Alliance closed. So the official answer was the pandemic. The agency shuttered because of the pandemic. There was no money, and so we had to shut down. There was a pandemic. There was no money, but that is not the reason why the agency shut down. We had been living under financial hardship for ages. My best illustration of that point is that the person who became the program manager that was a center director used to get constantly criticized because he wanted to buy new light bulbs because the center was so dim, people couldn't see walking through it, and we were told that there was no money to buy light bulbs. This was way pre-pandemic. I would say a year and a half before the pandemic even became a conversation. That was a thing. To our understanding from Jeff Myers, the executive director that was in charge when we were there was a huge mismanagement of money that happened in the people that came before him. And then he managed to get the executive director at the time ousted so he could become executive director. And during that time, they hired a company to handle Pride, which was the major funder for the agency, that mismanaged it, and that's where all the money difficulties started. So that was the year prior to me getting there, so that must have been 2018. And that's why there was no money. So people talk about how there was no money towards the end and where did the money go. From my understanding, it didn't go anywhere. There was no like embezzlement. It was just very poor handling by executive directors of the finances. Okay, come back for the next one, part 2.